So, a good story has elements that someone is going to think along with in order to progress in a cause and effect way that leads them to understand the development. So the problem with using time as the litmus to understand things is that things are not always causally bound by the sequence in which they happened, or, in words of time, past, present, future. I thought of this yesterday, a phrase that, space is this, time is that, and basically, space is the expression and time is the currency, and the axis upon which they rest is tilted. It's not a grid-based axis because the amount of energy that something contains directly affects how it influences time, in the sense that if its parts are moving really, really fast, you understand what I'm saying, in the same reference point, then it's going to speed up the time value. But regardless of the amount of space it's taking up. So, dimensionality is everything. And the universe is a self-organizing system that went from a single point to a 14 billion year landscape with galaxies that have functioning parts that make the galaxy what it is. Without the symbiosis between a host star and a planet, there is no room for life to happen in the system. So, kinetic energy, basically, back to the currency of the expression. There's just enough kinetic energy in our, section of this explosion from, an outward linear movement into a reality that has an edge. Left enough kinetic energy for the Earth to spin at just the exact rate that it's spinning. Now this gives us a 24-hour day, which, lines up perfectly with the 30-day moon cycle and the calendar and everything. Is just an example of the fact that the universe is alive on a fundamental level. Now, we will never be able to see this in our lifetimes because we are within the system. But if you look at the very, very smallest part of space, you get the Planck length. And what happens to me is that is the edge of understandability. And we might be able to push back on it by a couple centimeters, but it's a barrier. And on the other side of that barrier is God. the eye of the cosmos, infinity, whatever you want to call it. But there is a way that you can go beyond that. It's called psychedelics. So in sacred geometry, when you get to the point of current reality, what you're seeing is visually a duality. You're seeing, what your eyes are looking at, which is hyperbolic, because unless you're staring at a blank white wall, and even if you are, it's got a surface texture. And so, right in the middle area of this evolutionary process, where three-dimensional objects become relevant, is where we are as human beings, but we also have a sense for something beyond space-time. And when you look at Christmas lights, they don't change individually. When you look out at life, you need to actually do it for more than a second sometimes to understand that things are in motion. And, they tend to build from their previous position. But when they get to a saturation of their energetic display, they fade out. Living individual creatures are like boatmen in the water, but they're made of water. And so, when you see Christmas lights individually change in synchronicity and a pattern emerges, we're into higher dimensional understanding. Because a hypercube, for example, which is a fifth dimensional solid, has only one face that can display itself in 4 dimensions. You understand, like a cube has 6 faces, and if it's pointed right at you, it doesn't look like a cube, it looks like a square. So how would you even know that it has other dimensions? So hypercubes display themselves as 4-dimensional, as in space-time available, temporarily, because they're in motion. And so the same equation that governs a system of lights to make a smiley face is the equation that governs quantum systems to, arrange themselves in such a way that make entropy possible. You know what I'm saying? Or that make gravity possible. Strong nuclear force. And these systems are affected by being observed.